Well, I watched the Adolescence.
I've watched 3 episodes.
So 3 of the 4 you have watched.
Yeah, 3 of the 4.
What do you think of it?
I mean, I don't know. It's interesting how, all of this red pill garbage, how it has possibly morphed, because I'm not in the West, so I don't know how it's being used among young people. But the show seems to imply or seems to indicate that red pill affiliation or red pill association is kind of equivalent to being an incel, and it's being used as an insult, for someone who will never be with a woman,
Right.
for a boy who will never have a chance to be with a woman, which is actually, interestingly, the only trajectory it can go, and which is what I used to talk about in the Qawamun channel, which is that when you take this sort of an attitude towards women, it sentences you to a life of loneliness and masturbation. Really, because no one's going to want to be with you, because it's such an angry, resentful, hostile, adversarial attitude that's not in the slightest bit manly or masculine.
Yeah.
It's only off-putting for any woman, unless she is a woman with extremely low self-esteem, which is what they seek. And I think that the interesting thing about it is that people can sniff out that this offensive approach to women, as opposed to offensive, hostile, adversarial, confrontational, aggressive, that it is actually defensive. That the root of it is defensive. Because you actually are insecure, you actually are weak, you actually are intimidated by women. So you take this posture towards women. And it just goes from bad to worse. Because you can't be normal. So anyway, I mean, the show, again, I don't know how it has actually developed in the West. I mean, I know that there was still, to a certain extent, I guess, from what I can see on social media, there's still people who are falling for the red pill idea, or attitude, or approach, or what's the word they use? Praxology. Make it sound like it's scientific. And with the 80-20 nonsense, like people can't look at their own parents. With this 80-20 nonsense, that 80% of the women are only attracted to 20% of the men, and yet everybody's married and having kids. Okay.
Yet we are here where we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yet you can see your own father was able to get somebody, and his father, and his father, and his father. Okay, whatever. Yeah, but so I don't know. There seems to be still some people who are falling for that and thinking that it's good. But according to what the show is indicating, among, say, high school age, middle school age people, it's a derogatory term for someone who is a loser. Bullied people who are bullied, and that following red pill ideology or red pill attitude inevitably leads to being an incel, an involuntary celibate, because nobody wants you when you're like this. This whole thing, this is why it's very strange, and I always found it very strange and very disturbing and disappointing and ridiculous all at the same time for Muslims in the West, because this is almost only where you find Muslims falling for red pill, is in the West. I find it very strange that they do at all. Because, the red pill way of thinking almost eliminates the possibility of you getting married. And I think that it largely grows out of, not I think, it does. It grows out of the dating scene. All of the so-called praxology of what that guy's name was, I forgot his name, Tomasi. All of it was based on the dating scene. And it was based on how to be successfully promiscuous. That was what it was about. How to be successfully promiscuous and sleep with as many women as possible and not be rejected.
Yeah, I forgot that was a goal.
Yeah, that was always the original goal. and to sort of inculcate in men an anti-marriage attitude. What does this have to do with us? This has nothing to do with us, and it leads inevitably towards inceldom, because no one's going to want you when you're so obnoxious, unless you happen to be a billionaire, millionaire or billionaire. Which, what are the chances? And then it will be in spite of your personality. And in which case, if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, you don't need to learn any particular attitude or any particular approach to women, because you've got your wallet, and you will get the kind of women that your wallet can get you. Which again is also not conducive for marriage and family. But anyway, there's no reason for any of this to happen among the Muslims. Like, there's no reason for there to be a Muslim incel ever, except maybe in the West. But in the Muslim world, there's no such thing as a Muslim incel. Everybody can get married. Someone is always going to find somebody for you. Your mother knows somebody, your auntie knows somebody, your father knows somebody, your whatever, your uncles, the imam, matchmakers or whatnot, busybody matchmakers are always going to find somebody for you, and there's no reason for you to ever go without a wife, a spouse. I think that alhamdulillah, the Muslim community in the West is still better than other communities in the West, but these sort of networks aren't as strong or as fortified as they are in the Muslim world itself. And so you do find people, Muslims will feel isolated and will be struggling to how they can find somebody, and because even if you have your family, everyone in your family is busy with their own survival and struggling in that part of the world. So I can see why it would be more difficult for someone in the West, for a Muslim in the West, to find a wife or find a husband. In the West, they think that tearing down all of the traditional structures is progress, and is like equivalent to building something. To tear it down is like building something. And you think it's oppressive, this thing that all of these traditional structures in society that have been built over the course of millennium. And when we're not talking about like Muslims, when we're talking about kuffar, even they have their traditional structures. These traditional attitudes, these traditional structures and so forth, you decided that it was all oppressive and restrictive of your freedom. And so you think that it's progress, that you have evolved and you've advanced by tearing down all of these structures that took millennium to build. I make a distinction between them and us because our structures are given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's different. These aren't things that we had to build on our own and figure out on our own. We know that Allah revealed these things, these rules. You have your people, I can't imagine how hard it must have been without guidance, without revelation, to try to struggle through the muck and darkness to figure out how to build some kind of a system, some kind of a structure for society that would enable you to have longevity, that would enable you to have stability, security, safety, and reproduce. That must have been very difficult. And that's why it took you millennium to figure it out, millennia to figure it out, And then just when you get to the point of kind of figuring it out, now you have generations coming along that want to tear it all down and say that it's all repressive, oppressive, suppressive, anti-freedom, and so forth. So you tear it all down in the name of freedom. And you see the result of it. Now you can't get married. You can't find a woman. You can't even have decent relations between men and women. You think you're enemies of each other. You're always trying to cheat each other. You're always trying to take each other's stuff. You're always, like we were talking about before. This whole attitude, this whole adversarial attitude between men and women in the West, you can't separate it from capitalism. It's a very capitalist approach to relationships. It's letting capitalist, materialist thinking infect human affection, normal human feeling for between a man and a woman, to where the man is saying, well, what do you bring to the table? And if we are going to divorce, you're going to take half my stuff and whatever. The only reason you have the stuff is for her in the first place.
Repeat that, please.
Yes. The only reason, what kind of a man are you if you want to acquire things and hoard things and have all of these toys for yourself? I mean, I'm sorry, that's so feminine. That's so feminine. That's not a manly thing. Men are not supposed to care that much about things. We want the things to make you comfortable. We want to acquire those things to make you comfortable. Our comfort is not our highest priority. It never has been. That's part of being masculine, is being fine with being uncomfortable. That's what men have dealt with all forever. And if you're not ready to deal with that, then you're not really a man yet. You want to be a girl. You want to be pampered, and
Princess.
yeah, you want to be a little princess, which is like I said, and it's contradictory, because on the one hand, you have them this same group who's always talking about masculinity, red pill, and blah blah blah. They also like to talk about stoicism, asceticism, live the jungle man life or whatever. Meanwhile, if you get a divorce and she takes your stuff, you cry about it. And you want to become a millionaire so you can get the girl. So the only reason you want this is for this. So she's actually more important to you than the stuff that you're getting so that you can get her in your head. This is what you think. That if you get all of this stuff, you get this money, you get this house, you get this car, you get this what have you, this fancy job. All of that, you're doing it so you can get the girl, because you think that that's the only thing that they care about. So then when you lose all of those things, when you lose the girl, why are you mad about losing those things? You didn't get it for you in the first place. Actually, this is the thing. Be honest. What you're mad about, what you're sad about, what you're upset about is losing the girl. Can't you just admit that? That's the only reason you got all of this stuff in the first place, was to get her, and now you've lost her. And that's the thing that hurts. That's the thing that you should be sad about. And that's the thing that you should be trying to avoid losing, not talk about your stuff. That's so unmanly to talk about your stuff. You haven't improved anything by tearing down all of your traditional structures. You haven't improved anything. But on the other hand, you always had a flawed foundation. From the beginning, all of your structures were built on a flawed foundation. You were building in the dark without instructions, so it was already wonky to begin with. Now, if you've torn it down, okay, this is your opportunity to come to a well-built house, the unbreakable house of Islam. You can come to this house.
And we're ready. Welcoming.
Yeah, we're very welcoming. This is the thing about Islamic supremacism. I talk about Islamic supremacy. Everyone is welcome. It's not an exclusivist supremacy. It's inclusive. Anyone can join. Anyone can become. It's not racial. It's not ethnic. It's not linguistic. It's not geographic. It's belief. And if you come into that house, anyone can come into that house. It's not Arab only. It's not African only. It's not black only. It's not white only. It's not, Asian only. It's everybody is welcome. You just have to follow the rules. And if you're coming in the first place, you're coming in because you agree with the rules, and you recognize that the rules are good for you, that the rules are correct. So this is you tore everything down in your societies in terms of traditional structures that make any kind of a sense and that can help you make any kind of order of the chaos of your moral chaos. You tore all of that down. And you see the result of it, because we've been in this house, we've been continuing with our structures, which are not traditional structures, but are revealed structures. And we're much more successful people than you, even from your own perspective, from the evolutionary perspective, because we're producing and you're not producing. Our way is continuing to make us reproductively successful, whereas your way, you're going extinct. So obviously, from your own way of thinking, you should look at that and say, okay, this is a flawed approach to life. There was something else I was thinking about. Just on the way here, I was thinking about, in the context of the brother asking a question about something that maybe a lot of people don't know about, that you have separate rules in Malaysia for Muslims and non-Muslims. You have a body, quasi-governmental body, that oversees the Muslim issues in Malaysia. Because you have a significant non-Muslim population in Malaysia. And it's the same in Singapore. They have different, they have Sharia courts. Even in Singapore, they have Sharia court in Malaysia. And they have a body called JAKIM that oversees religious issues in Malaysia. They even have a kind of a police force that goes around and checks on people. If there's people in khalwa, if there's people, men and women alone, or or what have you, and only for Muslims. And I was just thinking about that, and then I was thinking about the video that I did about talking about Dubai, and how there's different rules in Dubai for Muslims and non-Muslims. And this is something, again, that has been throughout the ages in the Khilafah time. There's always been, to one degree or another, in certain issues and not in other issues, rules for Muslims and rules for non-Muslims. And then I was thinking about the issue of coexistence. Coexistence with the West. Coexistence with kuffar. And what that actually means. Like, if we're really boiling it down to what it actually means for us. For us, it means tolerance of vice. Tolerance of their vice and their tolerance of our virtue. This is what it comes down to. This is how you people, the kuffar, this is how you have to understand about yourselves. Because this is the reality. If you look at it objectively, we have to tolerate you drinking alcohol and getting drunk. You have to tolerate us praying. We have to tolerate you walking around half naked. You have to tolerate us walking around with modesty and covered. Look at the difference between us. This is what we are tolerating, and this is what you're tolerating. We have to tolerate your rampant materialism, self-indulgence, extravagance, and so forth, and you have to tolerate us fasting. We have to tolerate your immorality, and you have to tolerate our morality. This is really what it comes down to when we talk about coexistence. Who's sacrificing? And who's sacrificing what? Really analyze that. You Westerners, I'll talk like Jordan Peterson now. You Westerners, you Europeans, you Americans. You should become pen pals, maybe.
Yeah.
Get a Muslim pen pal and learn something about how to be a righteous human being. Become complete. You're incomplete now. This is a fact. You're incomplete. Because look at the things that you have to tolerate, and the things that annoy you maybe about Muslims is what exactly? That we pray, that we fast, that we don't drink, that we cover. Why does this bother you? This is something incomplete in you. And we have to tolerate your misbehavior, and you have to tolerate our good behavior. This is really what it comes down to. So who's more tolerant? How difficult is it to tolerate someone being good versus tolerating someone being bad? We have to tolerate you all being bad. And you have to somehow find it in your heart to look the other way when we're good.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We tolerate you being bad. We have a judgment about the behavior.
Of course.
But we don't impose this on you.
It's your problem.
But you find it, and your entitlement to not only, judge our virtue as being repressive and, oppressive or whatever, and you won't hesitate to impose your will on us.
This is exactly how it connects to our conversation. Because you take an aggressive, hostile, adversarial, offensive stance for defensive reasons. Because you know that we have a judgment about you, and you know that our judgment about you is right. You know you're not supposed to drink. You know you're not supposed to get drunk. You know you're not supposed to get high. You know you're not supposed to walk around naked. You know that you're not supposed to be having sex with this, that, and the other. You know perfectly well, because these are all the structures that you tore down. And you're guilty. And our existence bothers you because our existence embodies the judgment of your misbehavior. And it even probably makes you more angry that we tolerate you. Because you know that you probably shouldn't be tolerated. Because you know that you're wrong. And like you think, like for example, what I was talking about with Malaysia or Singapore and many, many other Muslim countries, to be honest, that there's rules for Muslims and different rules for non-Muslims. which is kind of like saying there's rules for Muslims and much fewer rules for non-Muslims. Like in Malaysia, there's way fewer rules for non-Muslims than there are for Muslims. And that's like the difference between, say, the Chinese education system and the American education system, where we actually care about cultivating you as a human being and making you good. That means you're more important. If you let someone just behave any kind of way, that means that you've already dismissed them. You've already discarded them. You know, you think or you try to tell yourself that it's repressive and oppressive and restricting your freedom and so on. If we try to enforce upon you our lifestyle and our moral values and our social conduct, the mores of Muslim conduct in society. But those are all things that are good for you and constructive and productive and makes you a better person and a more successful person. And like, for example, like what I was saying, if you were following the Muslim way and if you were inside the Muslim structure, there'd never be any such thing as an incel. You'd never have these problems. Not only that, there would never be any case of a Me Too. You know? Not because there aren't some bad people, not because there aren't some unpracticing, unserious, immoral Muslims. Obviously there are. But you'll never be alone with them in a room. If you're good, if you're following the rules. You'll never be in their bedroom. You'll never be in their hotel. You'll never be going there for a meeting at 3:00 in the morning. This isn't something a Muslim will do with the opposite sex. You know, so many of your problems will be solved. So many of the problems that are plaguing your society in the name of your freedom and your liberty, all of these problems will be solved, and you'll be happier and more successful and more stable and healthier. You know, and fulfilled. But okay, we won't force you to be happier and healthier and more fulfilled and more stable. We won't force you to do that. That's again us tolerating your vice. That's us tolerating your, I'm sorry, wickedness. And we are actually caring more about each other. You think that it's that we're like being nice to you by letting you do these things. But it's like a parent. A parent who lets their kid just do anything and be on their device the whole time, never go to school, never learn anything, be stupid in the world, never know how to behave, never how to socially interact with people properly, whatever. That's a terrible parent. That's not love. Makes the child happy in their childhood, just like giving you this so-called freedom makes you happy in your lunacy. But if you really care about someone, then you discipline them. And you make sure that they're doing the right thing. And that's what Muslims do with each other. But you don't want any part of that, because that would be oppressive. Okay, fine, we'll let you. This is the position that Muslim governments around the world take, who have non-Muslim populations, or who have non-Muslim tourists coming in and what have you. Okay, we'll let you do the things that you do. But you do it. This is what you want. We're not going to force you. So, like I said, you destroyed all of the structures because you wanted to be free, and now you find yourself in the wilderness. You return now back to pre-traditional structures, and you think it's progress. In other words, you know, they spent millennia building these traditional structures for society to make it stable, to make it viable. Thriving, yeah. Reproductive. Yeah. You over the course of all of these generations, you built all of that. Now you have torn all of that down, which doesn't put you in the future, that doesn't put you forward, that doesn't advance you, that puts you in prehistory in terms of your social and moral development. You've now returned to a primordial state with no moral structure, with no traditional structure, with no real societal structures at all, putting you in absolute moral chaos.
That's because you have disconnected yourself from divine source of guidance.
Well, they never had it.
Yeah.
They never had it.
Okay.
So this is what I'm saying. In the muck, in the mire, in the darkness, you were still able to build some kind of a structure that enabled you to survive as a people, as nations, you know. Whether it was paganism before, you had some kind of family structures, tribal structures, whatnot. You built all of these things, some rules and whatever. And obviously you got a whole lot wrong, which is why you even have a hatred for example, what they call patriarchy, why you have feminism, why you have all of these issues, because you've never gotten it right. Obviously, you've never gotten it right. You've always abused each other in one way or another, but still you were able to survive somehow. Now you've torn all of that down. So now you're in the prehistory state when you didn't even have all of that, when none of that work had been done. So you're in absolute chaos now. Except the only difference is that in those days, you had the absolute chaos, but you didn't have a government. You didn't have a power structure. You didn't have a social structure, and you also didn't have a power structure. Now there's a power structure. And now you're in a state of complete weakness and vulnerability because of your chaos. But the power structure is there, and it's fully built, and it's not tearing anything down except for you.